Hello and welcome back to another video on WD18, the Watford fan channel. Joined today by Charlie and by Jack. Jack, thank you so much for coming on today, mate. We're doing our end of season awards as we have done for the last couple of years. Obviously, this season it hasn't been the best season at all to be a Watford fan, and I think a lot of fans were relieved yesterday when the final whistle went against Stoke. Let's first off, before coming on to the awards, let's touch on that Stoke game. Jack, did you manage to watch it yesterday?
Yeah, I got all 90 minutes. I'm going to miss Tommy Mooney over the summer. I mean, nice of the players to turn up. A couple months too late. I think what's evident is that when you kind of get towards the end of a season, you're getting players that are kind of on the fringe. You're not really sure if they're going to get sold or if they're going to, get a new contract. I think Batman put in a pretty good performance. Interesting to see whether he'll stay or go. And then obviously a few people making what looks like their final appearances. So yeah, I mean, nice to win and end it on a slightly less toxic note, but doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, definitely. And Charlie, I had the pleasure of sitting next to you in the Rookery, as I had so many times this season. What did you make of the atmosphere? It was quite a quiet one, wasn't it?
It was strange. It was a strange atmosphere yesterday. I was actually surprised how many people were there. And I saw somewhere that apparently there was 20,000. Just goes to show that despite that season, Watford fans will always turn out and end of the season. But yeah, it was a strange atmosphere. First half was shocking. I think we got our entertainment by seeing a banner thrown around the Rookery. Second half, got to see a couple of goals. And like Jack said, it was actually quite nice to end on a positive note, because if we lost, I'm sure it would have been toxic and the players would have been some chance about them. So it was a nice end and nice to meet up with some faces after the game and have a beer to mourn the season.
Definitely, yeah, I echo that, Charlie. And before we come on to the awards as well, yesterday before the game, it was a really good opportunity to first of all say goodbye to João Pedro, who got the club's official player of the season, and also to say huge congratulations to the Golden Girls for winning their league as well. They've got a huge game coming up against Nottingham Forest, I think, again, in another cup final at Stadium MK. If they win that, they'll be promoted as well. So massive good luck to them. This video will be focusing on the men's team. So let's start off on a positive one. Let's start off with the highlight of the season. Charlie, what would you go for as your moment highlight that you're really going to take away from this year?
Just before I do that, there has been reports about Valérien Ismaël, which we are going to touch on at the end of the video. But my highlight of the season was the first game of the season against Sheffield United at home. Rob was in charge. We had a decent pre-season. Don't think it was a vintage performance, but we worked quite hard. João Pedro scored a lovely breakaway goal. And I don't know if we're going to get to Best Limbs Award, but I'd put this as the best limbs I've seen. Rookery kind of collapsed onto the pitch to celebrate with João and Sarr, and there was just so much hope, and that was my highlight, really.
Decent. Jack, what have you gone for, mate?
Similar kind of vibe, but it was that Burnley win. Do you guys remember when, was it Hamas or Ekstrand got sent off against Huddersfield, and I think it was 2-2 at the time, or we might have been 2-1 up. We ended up winning 4-2, and basically the whole of the Rookery were up on their feet for the last 10-15 minutes singing. And when Kumara'S got sent off against Burnley, and I thought that was probably one of the best red cards I've seen, because they definitely would have gone and scored. So looking back at it now, to have beaten the champions, and my word, were they good this season. And also obviously away, to put in a really good performance until that last minute goal. I think, yeah, I'm probably going to go with that Burnley win.
Yeah, interesting one. And talking about the Rookery on their feet that day, and the main chant they were singing was Voulez-vous, where the last lyric was Watford's going to win the league, and that was pretty short-lived. I've got Jacob's highlight of the season. Jacob can't be with us today, unfortunately, due to last stretch for him at uni, so best of luck with that, mate. His highlight of the season was Toby Adiemo'S goal against Blackpool at home. I think we can all agree, fantastic moment to see an academy product come through, come off the bench and score as well, which was brilliant in a 2-0 win. I've gone with my highlight of the season. I've gone with Bakumbayo's goal against Middlesbrough at home. Absolute carnage in the Rookery when that went in. 100 years at Vicarage Road. It was just a brilliant day all round, and I was really happy for him as well because he had a lot of stick when he first came in, and I think he still does get a bit of stick now. But I was delighted for him, and he came up with some really big goals this season, and I think that was the most notable one.
Is no one going to say Luton at home?
I think that goes without saying, doesn't it? I'm sure like that will come up in other categories. I just want to say, Sam, quickly, do you remember we got the assist for that Bayo goal?
It was Mario Gaspar, wasn't it?
Possibly the worst assist I've
seen. We got it from Ewan's TV. We've got the information. Girls playoff final is Saturday, 20th of May at Stadium MK in Milton Keynes. £5 entry, £2.50 for under 16s. And it is against Nottingham Forest. So try and get down there if you can for a 1 p.m. kickoff. Obviously, none of us included Luton in that, as you said, Charlie. So I think let's move on to our game of the season then. I've gone with Luton. What have you two gone for?
Exactly the same.
What have I gone for game of the season? Let me have a look while you two remember.
Jacob's gone for Luton at home as well for the 4-0. Just while you
clean sweep.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was pretty straightforward. In a season that was quite miserable for a lot of it. I think we all took massive enjoyment in beating them a lot up the road. What a performance, Charlie. It was complete. It was perfect, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was nervous going into that one like you are in any derby. And when you kind of 1-0, that's good, 2-0. But like second half, it felt really comfortable and it was just enjoyable and we're just bopping it around. And again, it might be another category, but João Pedro was probably the best performance I've ever seen him. That day, I was gutted I wasn't there because apparently the atmosphere before, during and after was electric. So yeah, a real high point, really good game, really loads of good performances. Everyone dug in deep, and there were some good goals there as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Jack, you obviously flew back from Paris for the game. What was your main memory of that day?
That's a really good question. That, to be honest, it's all kind of a blur. That was my birthday weekend, although to be honest, I had just flown back for the match. But yeah, to be able to celebrate my 21st with us beating them, the first time that I'd ever seen us play them live, was unbelievable. And also it was the first time I was able to see all my boys for a few weeks. So that was really nice. I think what stood out for me is just obviously Edwards had been sacked and Bilic had been brought in, hadn't he? So there was kind of like things weren't great kind of during that period. And we kind of all had gone into it thinking, oh no, this could be one of those horrible days.
It was off the back of that 3-0 defeat away at Millwall as well, where we were terrible.
Well, there we go. And so, yeah, so for me, it was just such a relief to be able to come back. And it's one thing beating them. Like, if it had been a close game, it would have been a different story. But we battered them from, well, it was minute 2 that Keenan Davis scored with that scorpion behind the back.
I don't think anyone really knows what that Davis goal was. It was like a mix.
He was unbelievable. He absolutely bullied them. There was that run as well. He picked the ball up like 40 yards out, ran through a couple of players, got a shot off and nearly scored. I mean, we'll come on to Underwhelming, and there's a conversation to be had about pretty much all of them.
Spoiler.
Yeah. But I mean, for as good as that day was, there has been a lot of lowlights this season as well. Charlie, what was your low light of this season for us?
Luton was bad. I think we could all. It was shocking, just the performance for such a big game and the build-up, and just the lack of effort was troubling, really. But that Millwall at home, I'm not sure if it was straight after kind of the break. No, we had Hull, but I don't know if it was after Christmas or something like that or New Year. But it was like the final stretch. It was. Do you know what I mean? They're an okay team, and we thought, okay, let's kick on and let's really try and put a stamp and show that we can be contenders. And I think after that day was when I was like, this team are not what we want them to be and not good enough. And I don't know, there's been loads of performances that are disappointment, but that I don't know why that Mill one really stands out for me.
Yeah, I've got in terms of my specific highlight of my specific low light of the season in terms of moment was, I think Hassan Kumara'S red card that day against Millwall really captured everything that's been wrong with that Watford season. I think he showed, he lost his head completely. He looked immature. He didn't look up for the fight, and Millwall bullied us that day. So I agree with you, Charlie, but specifically that Kamara red card I think was a real low light. Before we come into you, Jack, Jacob has gone with the day Rob Edwards was sacked, and pretty much we saw Scott Duxbury's comments will back and come hell or high water was completely thrown out the window. Media ridicule again, and it did feel like we were lied to as supporters. But Jack, what did you go for?
So I went a bit later on in the season. I think obviously a lot of the early season stuff was disappointing. The Edwards one is a difficult conversation because you got to remember there were games. I mean, I can think of a couple of away games where he was getting booed off the pitch when he went to clap people. I obviously Luton was horrible, but for me, Swansea away was horrible. We were in the middle of an injury crisis. We didn't have a particularly good run of form. I think the midfield two was Bakuna and Gaspar. Oh no, it was Tom Delibashir and he got injured, didn't he? And then Bakuna and Gaspar, we got absolutely pummeled. I had to drive home with Sam asleep in the back, 4 hours back from Swansea in the pitch black. Although that did create one of my favourite moments of the season, which was, if you're listening, Alex King's uncle went onto one of the Twitter spaces and produced one of the greatest speeches that I've ever heard in my life. It's definitely not appropriate for whatever time it is with you guys. But yeah, that Swansea was just horrible. And like people were leaving at half time. People left pretty early on into the second half. We just got absolutely outplayed by a bog standard side.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well. It was an awful day, and I think it was on the Do Not Scratch Your Eyes podcast. So make sure to have a look at them. They've done some great stuff this season, and I'm sure some good stuff in the summer as well. Let's go back to a more positive one though. Here we are. Yes, Alex's uncle was a legend that night. Our signing of the season. It wasn't the best transfer window in either the summer one or the winter one. But Jack, who have you gone for signing?
It's really, I'd love to say João Ferreira because he came around and mowed our lawn a couple of weeks ago while he was injured. Lovely bloke, I've heard.
Went all the way to France to do that?
No, I wish. That one was in Radlett. But I think it's got to be Porto, Ryan Porteous. I think that although he hasn't, come in and revolutionised our defence, I think he's shown what we had been lacking all season, which was fight and playing for the shirt and putting in a performance to, justify those fans that are travelling hundreds of miles and, giving up days, weekends, spending ridiculous amounts of money. And I think when he came in, there was a lot of hype. He was pretty popular very quickly. And I mean, you can see by that Sunderland game where the Hibernian fans rocked up. He's obviously a popular guy, and I really hope that he can build a legacy at Watford, and I could see him being a club captain very soon.
That was my next question, Jack. Yeah,
sorry, Sam. I do think Porto's application has been good, but I do think if he gets some good coaching with someone more than 3 months, I think he can develop. I think he has shown some moments of indecision and some bad decision making. So I hope he can get we can build a better team around him and maybe some coaching, and he can be a really good player for us. But I don't think he's a finished article yet. Yeah,
definitely. Jack, my question for you then was, if Tom Cleverley does move on in the summer, which remains to be seen, even still, it's unlikely that he'll play too many games. Is Ryan Porteous your captain for next season?
No, but I don't have an answer for who is. I mean, firstly, we've got no idea who's going to be there. Like, I mean, I know that we've all discussed it at some point, but the keep, sell, loan out list is ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, you could throw ideas at me and I'd give you yes or no's, but off the top of my head, there is no one that stands out to lead that team next season.
Interesting. Yeah, I've gone with Ryan Porteous as well. I think while particularly in the last few weeks, we've seen a bit of a drop off, particularly yesterday in that first half against Stoke. I thought he was really poor and really shaky in the first 10, 20 minutes. He's been my signing of the season, but I think at the same time, the bar is quite low as well. A couple of suggestions here. Geordie says it has to be a Spria or Porteous. Rio, good to see you. He's gone with Chowdhury, not many to choose from, and then he'll go with Porto. Jacob has actually gone for João Ferreira, Jack. He thinks that when he added a little note next to it saying when he is fully fit, we've got a player on our hands. So interesting one now. I don't think we've quite seen enough of him yet, for me at least. But I think there's potential when he is fully fit.
Do you want mine?
Did I not go with yours yet?
No, I butted in for something Jack was saying. I think the Esprit is a good shout. It feels like he joined ages ago, but I think I would go for Hamza Chowdhury. I know he can be a bit like Marmite between the Watford fans, and that Sam doesn't like Marmite, but I think he's been one of the players. He's probably, I know he got an injury that whole game just after the World Cup, but I think he's been one of the most available players. Every game he's shown, I think he's shown really good application and fight. He's had a couple of really, really good games at Burnley, home and away, kind of stands out. And he has shown what he can do. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, I think we've got an option. It'll be around 4 million. I'll be surprised if he stays next season. I think we talked about it yesterday, maybe another loan next season if that could be worked instead of us paying a fee. But I've really appreciated what Hamza's done since he's come in.
Do you think he stays at Leicester if Leicester get relegated?
It'd be ideal for them.
I think so. And I think Leicester will go down as well, which is why I don't think we'll see Hamza back next season. But individual performance of the season. Charlie, I'll come to you first so I don't forget you this time. Who have you gone for in terms of your standout performance from a player in one game this season?
Like the obvious one, João Pedro against Luton. That's like a Hall of Fame performance. Unbelievable.
Jacob's gone with that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some other good ones. I think James Morris had a really, really good one, Norwich away, I think. Yasser Esprit has had some good ones. I think Yasser Esprit against Preston, I know it was 0-0, but I think he started and he just looked so composed. I think he put 2 through balls into Manai or Bayo, and they both missed their big chances. So yeah, I think that one stands out for me.
Yeah, just looking at this one here, Davis against Norwich. And that, I know he only played 20 minutes before he did his hamstring, like every player around that time. He was unbelievable that day, and I think that makes it even more disappointing as to how he's sort of come on throughout the rest of the season, because we've seen what he is capable of. Jack, individual performance of the season?
I'm going to go with one that I'm going to go with the live games because it's easier for me to really get behind someone. So obviously, like the whole team at that Luton game were unbelievable. I'm not going to nick yours, Sam, but I think that's a good shout. But for me, and you're going to laugh, Gaspar / Morris against Norwich, both unbelievable. As we said before, we were in a proper injury crisis. We've just been absolutely battered away at Swansea. The fans are singing, "We're Watford FC, we've got no midfield." I think we had 2 injuries in the game as well. And then you've got Gaspar playing out of position, Morris starting in a high pressure game against what was supposedly a promotion rival, although it didn't work out to be that way. Those are 2 really big performances and a result that we needed, because I fear that if we'd lost that game, I don't know where we're going to come from there.
Yeah, definitely. And that whole performance I thought was really, really good. And I was really behind Slaven Bilic at that point, because I thought if you can get a team, everyone's playing out of position. And Charlie, I think you said something similar at the time, but I was really, really behind him. Just on Slaven Bilic, and before we move on to another award, I mean, I'll quickly say as well, my individual performance of the season was Dan Bachman against Burnley right at the start of the season, probably our 3rd or 4th game, but he was brilliant that day, made so many brilliant saves. Geordie again here saying Gaspar better than Xavi, as we saw that day.
Him and Bakuna were Xavi and Iniesta, weren't they?
Both of them, unbelievable. Just touching on the managers this season, we're not going to do a manager of the season as much as we probably could as Watford fans. But Charlie, first of all, with Rob Edwards, looking back on it, where do you think it went wrong?
One man who owns the club. Yeah, like when we talked about earlier, and Jacob said about his, I don't know if we talked about lowlights, and he said Rob Edwards leaving. Like, I echo that. When that decision got made, I honestly couldn't believe it. It was 11 games, and I was gutted. I was I was upset. I think we've all bought into Rob, and although there were some bad performances, I think everyone at the start of the season said, like, I don't want to use the hell or high water line, but we will stick with him. Do you know what I mean? Even if we don't get promoted, we'll be happy. I think Mike Parkin said a line at the beginning on from the Rookery end. It was like, what do we want to see this season? And he's like, stick with a manager for one season, that would be success. And I totally agree with him. What went wrong with Rob Edwards? You can look at recruitment. Did we recruit for his style of play? And he just simply didn't get enough time. It's just, I can't bear to think about him at Wembley, taking Luton into the Premier League. But that would be the biggest highlights to Gino of that decision. That'd be an absolute shocker. So, yeah, I was really gutted with Rob Edwards. And I know, Sam, you don't want to say manager of the season. Hopefully no rival fans watching this having a laugh. But it is a fair debate. Which manager have you liked the most this season?
Well, I said, I did say to you, Charlie, yesterday, I said I've got a feeling with the way everything went, if we'd kept Slaven Bilic, I think we would have had a better chance of getting into the playoffs than under Chris Wilder. That's not to say I think we would have done, because I don't think the team's good enough. I don't think they ultimately have the fight. But at the same time, I think in some of the games that we capitulated in, I don't think we see as much of that under Bilic, if that makes sense. I also think sacking him again gave the players showed the players that they have to take little responsibility, which made them lose the fight even more. But on Slaven Bilic, Jack, I know you were a big fan of him, particularly when he first came in. You weren't too keen on Rob Edwards either. So what was your thinking when Bilic first came in versus how you felt when he left?
So that transition from Edwards to Bilic, for me personally, from the performances that we'd put in, I know that we'd been promised this, that, and the other, and I know that the idea of a culture change was going to come about, and that was going to make things better. That I didn't have an issue with, but I also understand the importance of getting straight back promoted once you've been relegated for a club, both financially and in terms of hanging on to players and stuff. So I think from that perspective, I didn't have the biggest issue with it, and I think Bilic wasn't the worst appointment by any stretch. And you definitely could have seen that from a few of the performances. He got so unlucky with some of the injuries. I mean, not to make excuses, but we had 13 first team players out, and we're going to come on to Unsung Hero, aren't we? Because I've just thought of another one who I hope he doesn't go unmentioned. But yeah, I think that for me, sacking Bilic was probably, I mean, I'm sure you guys all saw that stat about from winning positions, how many points we've dropped under Wilder and stuff like that. And yeah, Sam, I'm with you, mate. Like, I don't think that we would have made playoffs with Bilic. However, it just goes back to this point of, oh yeah, well, we're a Mickey Mouse club. We sack who we want. The players have no kind of, I mean, take Sarr, for example. We've spoken about this before. Sarr had one manager for the last 3 years. Think about the player he would be in comparison to the player he is now.
Yeah, definitely. And before moving on to the Unsung Hero Award, Charlie, Chris Wilder's reign as Watford manager, we didn't achieve playoffs. Do you think his reign has gone as expected? Do you think it's gone better than expected, or do you think he's underachieved?
I think it's been shocking, but I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think, I feel like the sentiment, the amount of fans that like him, I've heard a lot of noise about him, people wanting him to stay, which is, do you know what I mean? If you look at the stats, he don't look good, but I think his honesty has been refreshing. And I think it's been what us fans want to hear, to kind of know that someone within the club can relay that and communicate that. It's been shocking, but like what you guys have said about Bilic, I think you're correct, but I just think with the players and their attitudes, I think we would have seen many capitulation under him at the end of the season. We've already seen a few. Was Blackpool under Bilic? Blackpool away, that was a shocker.
Yeah, Blackpool away was one of his first ones. Yeah, there were some really poor ones under Bilic. Blackpool away, Swansea away. I think both Millwall games were under him as well. So I mean, he definitely wasn't unbelievable.
He might have got us like 3 to 6 more points. And I think your point about him sacking made the players probably even more dejected or less accountable is a really good point. So yeah, Chris it's been a tough one for him, but I think it's not going to harm too much him getting another job, I don't think. And I think he's made a bit of a connection with Watford fans, of being honest. So, like, I thank him and his team for all his efforts, but no, it's not played out how any of us wanted.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll forever be grateful to Chris for his honesty. I think it was after the Huddersfield game or the Cardiff game where he gave a 6-minute or so interview, which Watford actually published themselves, which was brilliant. I think to hear someone with that much honesty, there was no hiding away from the situation, was great to see. He's also, as Ria says here, he's been linked with the Reading job today in League One. I think that would probably be a good move for him if the rumours there are true at all. Matt, good to see you on here, mate. People wanting Wilder to stay shows how low the bar is. Before moving on,
I think that's harsh. I think if we had Wilder at the beginning of the season, it would have been a very different story. It's very clear that he's a manager with a philosophy that you're not going to be able to implement overnight, and especially with some of the dross that we have in our squad. But Matt's used to watching League One football, so.
Yeah, Matt's a Bristol Rovers fan for context there. I mean, it is quite funny with the style of play that we did see throughout his games that randomly you would see it. For example, yesterday, Porteous just starts bombing forward, trying to be an overlapping centre back, which was enjoyable to watch. I'll just throw it in there anyway. Manager of the season, are we giving one? I'll go with Slav, to be honest.
We didn't even get an interim because I would have gone for like a Hayden Mullins. We were so efficient with it, weren't we? I'll go for Slav, but purely because of the Luton game and the Norwich game and maybe a couple others.
Fair enough. Charlie?
I want to go with Rob, but he's a Luton manager now.
Yeah. Tough one.
Let's just not think that he's a Luton manager, but I just think the idea of trying to go down a different route, British manager, long-term project. I know people are probably laugh and listen, but if you look at these videos at the start of the season, we were all buzzing about that prospect. So it's just a disaster what's happened.
Yeah, absolute nightmare. Moving on to something a bit more positive. Unsung hero of the season. Jack, who have you gone with?
Dan Gosling. He was immense. I hated him when he was at Bournemouth because he fitted into that kind of like Eddie Howe divey kind of player, really unlikable team. And so when we signed him, I was kind of like, oh, this is so Watford. We're going to get a washed up ex-Prem player that's really not very good. And I mean, he wasn't amazing. That goal at Norwich we'll always kind of remember him for. But the way that he turned into a right back was like nothing I've ever seen. If we talk, I mean, it's stupid because obviously I watch Watford more than I watch anyone else. I'm sure people from other clubs will, have seen similar things where players have just like massively surprised them. But the way that Dan Gosling took on that right back role, owned it, and ended up being coined the Torquay Cafu. I mean, what a bloke. Yeah,
did a great job in there, and hope. I'm not sure if Dan is watching this, but I hope the recovery is going okay for him. And I'm not sure if he is he contracted to the club anymore, or is he released? I can't. There was like an option that he could.
I think he was released, but there's like he can carry on being involved like physio or something like that. But yeah, fingers crossed we see him back.
Charlie, who have you gone with for your unsung hero?
I'm a bit worried about saying this, but I don't know. It could be a hot take, but I was thinking Hamza Chowdhury, but I think someone who has come in, I expected little of them. And every time I see them play, I don't think they did too much wrong. And sometimes they put on really, really good performances. Bakuna, he came in, I think everyone was pretty fuming with the signing. Just kind of that short term that we needed when we had all those injuries. And I can't remember too many disasters. I think we know he's a pretty limited footballer, but every time he came in, he kind of just did the basics really well, really composed. I think it was a really good performance against Birmingham at home, wasn't it? That Norwich game we spoke about, he stood up in the middle of the field, and he's kind of come on and gone off loads of times towards the end of the season. And I can't remember too many bad games. So, yeah, I know we're kind of comparing him to, is it Carlos Sanchez for the promotion season? I don't know if he was as solid as him, but I think he deserves a mention.
Yeah, definitely. Good shout that, Charlie. Jacob's gone with Ken Sema. I think as well, it went under the radar when we spoke about performance of the season, but his game against West Brom as well was brilliant. 2 goals, did that interview after as well, was great. Some of your suggestions here, Rio, you've gone with Bayo for winning us those 5 points. Good shout. We've got James Morris here. King Ken, as Jacob's gone with. Now, Geordie's here has gone with Backman has been incredible. He's a really interesting one, Dan Backman, because I think while there has been some phenomenal saves he made, and for me, he was my Watford man of the match yesterday. First half, he was incredible. I just think he puts us under so much pressure with the way that he stays on his line and doesn't come for crosses and his kicking as well. Jack, I saw your immediate reaction there. What are your thoughts on Dan Backman's season?
Don't sit on the fence.
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not going to. I think my Twitter bio at the beginning of the season was Daniel Flapman enthusiast. His ability to come off his line was like the first thing that struck out to me, and then the distribution just went down. I think for me, being a shot stopper almost needs to be like an essential part of being a top level goalkeeper, and despite the fact that there are games where he's definitely kept us in it, and more so. I think that if you're, getting the gig as a number one at any club, in the Premier and in the Championship, then you've got to have more to your game than just shot stopping. Although, having said that, so is he 28? I think I was listening to the Stoke commentary yesterday, and they were saying that I think this has been his first season as a number one at the age of 28. Make of that what you will. I'm ready to see him move on. Lovely bloke, and I appreciate his honesty as well, because was it this season that he confronted the fans? I think it was at Blackburn, maybe. Yeah. So I appreciate his honesty, and he's been a good servant to the club, but ready to see someone else come in and not Okoye.
Yeah, look, I think most people agree here that he's confusing, according to Matt. He's brilliant and hopeless at the same time. Charlotte, I think, put it really well here. He's a Jekyll and Hyde goalkeeper. He's almost like the keeper, I think. You'll see in the first half will make an unbelievable save, and then second half make a mistake that will cost us a goal. Charlie, what have you made of his season?
Yeah, I think echo what everyone said. There's definitely that inconsistency. Shot stopping, you can't question him, but I think what Jack said about distribution, and you see it with Manchester United with David De Gea, where especially it becomes when the team can see a keeper can't command his area. It's a real problem. So I really like Dan. I think his heart's in the right place. I think sometimes he can lose his head a bit. We saw that sending off. And sometimes his kind of energy just seems too overexcited and hyped up. But yeah, I think he's a really, really good shot stopper. But there's other sides of games that he needs to improve. So it'd be interesting to see. I think he'll be our number one next season.
Yeah, I think he's one though. Again, from the Rookery, I mentioned this on their podcast. Make sure to have a listen if you can. I think he's one of those. I think they're going to look at it and think they can get 3 or 4 million from him. If an offer comes in, I reckon they'll accept it. To be honest with you, my unsung hero, I've gone with Yasser Asprilla, because while he hasn't necessarily set the world alight, I think for a first season in English football, I think he's played a lot more than I think he probably anticipated he would. I think the plan was that he'd be eased in a lot slower. And while he didn't start too many games and made a lot of cameos off the bench, I think we've seen a lot there to suggest there's going to be a really good player, particularly his eye for a pass, his weight of pass is really, really good. Obviously, he can develop physically. He needs a João Pedro-esque sort of summer where he's just in the gym putting in 7-8 kilo in the summer. But I think there's a player there. Whether he's the João Pedro replacement or not, who knows? Jack, what do you think about
that? I really like him. And I think it was beginning of the season, Edwards kind of didn't play him. Oh, no, sorry. I think he played more than he was expecting to or something. And there was like this overexposure. Spot on about needing to get into the gym. He's more than welcome to come with me in the summer. There's a nice gym in Watford for bodybuilders. So him and I can get on the pump together. I think he has a lot of potential, and we've got a pretty good track record of turning, these South American players into, more successful than when they arrive at us. My concern is that he can't finish to save his life. And whereas with Richarlison and João Pedro, you saw that kind of natural goal scoring ability. And I know that he plays in a slightly deeper role. How many times have we seen him miss sitters? But I think that's a confidence thing. He's obviously very young, and he comes along with quite a few exciting youth prospects that we've got on the books at the moment. So yeah, I think he definitely has a role to play, and I hope that we can hang on to him for longer, and that we're not just a stepping stone for his career.
Definitely. Charlie, your most improved player this season?
Most improved. Who have I gone for? I know this one was tricky. Most improved. Oh yeah. So I was looking at. I've got 3 names, but one. I think if you look at it, João Pedro could be up there. Do you know what I mean? He didn't play enough. I don't think we even spoke about this last on the João Pedro to Brighton stream, but he didn't play enough in the Premier League, I don't think, last season. And this season, he just came in and it was clear that he was the main man and he was our best player by a mile. So he was one Players of the Year. So I think he's had an improvement. An honourable mention to Britt Assombalonga. Loads of questions when he came in. I don't think he didn't pull up any trees at all, but I think he had slow improvement. But my most improved would be Ryan Andrews. How many games has he played? 5 or 6. And I think even when he came in, he was really solid, but you could just see in those short games of his confidence building and improvement. And I think we spoke about it yesterday, but a player who really deserves to have a chance to fight for that right back spot, because I don't think he's done too much wrong. He gave away that penalty at Hull, didn't he? But I think you've seen a real improvement. He looks confident. He drives with the ball. He's not afraid to attack as well as defend. He can put a good tackle in. So I'd love to see him fight, earn and cement his place at right back next season. But I think he's been the most improved.
Yeah, he's been excellent. Mine was a name you mentioned there, Charlie. I've gone with Britt Assombalonga. His first couple of games, he looked unfit, to be honest with you. But in his last few games, I think in that Huddersfield game where we lost 3-2, it was a brilliant finish. And it got me thinking that I'd actually quite like to see him stick around next season, get him on for another 6 months or another year deal, get him fully fit. And I think we've got a player who can come off the bench and someone who also fits the homegrown quota. Shouts in the comments of Ken Sema, James Morris, Ryan Andrews. Jacob's gone with Mario Gaspar. Jack, who have you gone for?
I'm going to disagree with both of you here in that I don't think you can give the award to the most improved to someone that's played less than, say, 10 games. So as nice as it has been to see the integration of Ryan Andrews, I think that you can't really tell what this whole kind of like category shows is that no one's really improved over the course of the whole season. Pedro definitely didn't. Keenan Davis went up and down and up and down.
Do you not think Pedro improved throughout the season?
No, because I think there were times where his attitude just stunk, and then obviously as soon as
you're right about him not improving throughout the season, I think that's a good point. I think he's probably been at the level, but from kind of coming from Premier League to Championship, that's where I've gone for. So
I think between the start of the season to say the World Cup, I think we saw him go up like that, and then I just think it sort of stayed the same, if not dipped a little bit in the second half of the season.
But the truth of it is that everyone fell off, and there might have been some individual performances. There are definitely like 4 or 5 game periods where Chowdhury was excellent. I like Jacob's shout of Gaspar just because I love him. He definitely didn't improve though. But yeah, I mean,
who are you going for then?
Raymond, he got better as the time went on. No, I can't say that.
I can't even tell if you're joking, Jack.
I can't say that with a straight face. I genuinely don't think I've got an James Morris. James Morris definitely improved. Coming in at a time where we were desperate, and it's not easy going up, as a youth player playing left back in the Championship with some tricky wingers. And I thought that he definitely got better from his first appearance in the season to the most recent.
Interesting, definitely. Well, and fair play, he also won Young Player of the Season for the club yesterday, as announced before the game. Slightly more negative award again. Your how do I say it? Best way of saying it. Your the player you're most disappointed with this season, Charlie, most underwhelming?
I'm going to have to give it to Ismail Assar, just because we all know what he can do. Last time in the Championship, he was excellent. He was probably the most important player in getting us promoted back to the league. And I think the Pozzos were although Villa pulled out of that £25 million deal, which would have seen us get Cameron Archer. I think the Pozzos in the back of their mind are thinking, if we can keep João Pedro and Sá, that's going to be enough to get us up. But it's not. You have to be a decent team. Do you know what I mean? I'll be really grateful. I think that was the last we saw of Sá yesterday, and I think he got a good reaction. It was really good to see him spend a lot of time doing autographs and taking pictures. But yeah, I think he's disappointed me most in terms of, I just want someone to grab a game with his quality, and no doubt he's going to go somewhere and show that he's an international player. So yeah, Sá for me.
Yeah. Do you think, Charlie, to what extent do you think Watford have held him back in his career?
Yeah, massively. We spoke about the managers. The environment he's been in is just it's not there to help develop. I think that's why we're so impressed with João Pedro, because he's actually been able to develop at Watford, which I don't think many other players have been. Said it quite a few times with Sá. I think I even made jokes when we first signed him. I'm like, we're going to sell him on for 100 million easy, when he's scoring against Liverpool and stuff like that. And he's just not, for whatever reason, in terms of different managers, styles, we've moved him out. He's playing on the left at some points this season. I don't think it's all his fault, but it's just ended really, really badly. And be interesting to see how much money we get from him, if any.
Jack, how much do you reckon we'll get for Sá in the summer?
I used to tell my Arsenal friends that Sá was worth more than Nicolas Pepe.
They're probably on the same level. I don't know if Pepe is doing anything now.
At the time, Sá was definitely better. I think that firstly, it depends who we're selling to. I think he probably will go to a Prem club. I don't see him going for a lot more than 15, 20 million. Really frustrates me because, again, like as we've said, he's a player that if he kind of had Pedro's kind of attitude and didn't require everything to go his way, then I think that he really could have excelled and kicked on. I would have rather have seen him leave us when he was at his peak with us, as opposed to if he's going to go now, because he's given us some unbelievable memories and he's put in some incredible performances, and he's also been pretty poor this season.
Yeah, I'd be surprised, to be honest, if we get that much for him. I think with the year left on his deal, I'd be surprised if we get more than 10 million for him in the summer. As Alfie says here in the second half of his comment, I could also see him going to Udinese if we can't shift him. Jack, who is your most underwhelming player this season?
I don't think many people are going to like this one. Imran Loser.
Oh, I've got Loser as well.
Oh, that's good. There's strength in numbers. I think I was so excited when he came in, and I think we've seen so many good glimpses, and everyone knows what he's capable for. And so for me, what the most disappointing player of the season is the one with the most potential and the one with the most natural ability, not be able to put it into action. I think that his injury did play a big part in that, and I think that and it looked pretty horrible. It was at Millwall, wasn't it? And I think that definitely not only dented his confidence, but also I think he kind of looked as if he was playing almost half-heartedly. But I mean, the last like 10, 15 games of the season, the amount of balls he just like hoof up. There was one, I think it was at Sunderland, and we'd been under pressure for a bit. He's got a free kick halfway into their half, and he doesn't wait for like our centre backs to go up. He just hoofs it, kicks it straight out. Unbelievably frustrating player. I don't want him to go because I think that, again, with the right manager and in the right system, he can be a good player for us. But yeah, this season, not the one.
Yeah, I think for me at least, why I find him so frustrating is that, as Laura says, hey, he changed the game away at Stoke. We've seen what he is capable of. I just don't think we've seen it enough. I think he sometimes hides behind other players as well and doesn't receive and show for the ball as much as he should. But I don't think, again, I mean, I think the injury had a huge impact. There were shouts of Kamara further up. Rio here has gone with Keenan Davis, as did Jacob as well. Charlie, you're a big Keenan Davis fan, I think, at the start of the season. What do you think's gone wrong?
One point I was going to jump in there when Jack was talking about loser, and I think it could apply for quite a few players in this team, is that application, that mentality. And I think that's something that we need to look at, especially when we're recruiting for next season. Have these players got the right application? I think what you said about João Pedro and Sarr is bang on. Like, if Sarr had João Pedro's mentality, where could he be? Probably going to Brighton for 50 million. But yeah, Keenan Davis, I think we talked about his performance against Luton. He can be absolutely incredible, but I think he's not been consistent, and sometimes seeing on his pitch, his body language doesn't look good. So, but again, like, I don't want to kind of blame him solely. I think the environment's been terrible for him, and I would not be surprised if he goes to another Championship team next season and helps them get promoted, because he has got there is a good player in there, but I just don't think our environment's been right for him.
Yeah, definitely, it didn't help the environment. I also think as well he probably struggled playing up top by himself a lot throughout the season.
Why didn't we play a Rouge? Oh, can someone
happened yesterday for like 15 minutes, didn't it?
I thought he did well as well yesterday when he came on. I really liked his movement. I always have whenever he's come on. I just think he struggled with the physicality of the game.
If anyone can like drop a comment below as to like if they know the reason as to why he's had so little, like if there was anything more to it behind the scenes than just he was out of favour, because he's supposed to be some wonder boy and
hardly seen him. Yeah,
I can't wait until a couple of years, 5 years time, we'll all be watching the Champions League going, do you remember when João Pedro and Henry Caruso used to play for us? Now they're playing for Madrid or whoever. You can see it happening.
I could see it happening. It would be very Watford. A couple of other shouts there. Robbie's gone with Courtney Hawes after such a promising start. Even played for how many games was it? He played probably 2 or 3.
He's a masked rapper now.
Did we ever find out who that was? The masked rapper.
There were rumours. I think Eddie Nketiah was the head of the group, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Just 3 more awards to go then. Let's start off with limbs of the season. Jack, I know you weren't at too many games, but what would you go for?
Oh, I got enough limbs in to get my fix for this year. I'm not going to go for Luton because I think everyone is going to say that, and that's the obvious one. But they were phenomenal. For me, Norwich, it was pretty late. We were the fans were in good voice. I was really upset because I love the Norwich goal music. So to not hear them score, I kind of like, oh well, if they're not going to score, we might as well. And for the Crow to do it. That ball, it was a ball from a Asprilla, wasn't it? It was outrageous. Yeah, that was really good limbs.
Yeah, Charlie.
I don't even know what limbs are anymore this season. I feel like it's such a shame. Like, I've been to quite a few games, quite a few away games, but like I went to Burnley, I went to Huddersfield, Wigan. Can't remember too many limbs, but the one that stands out for me, first day of the season, I know me and Sam were eating prawn sandwiches, but we were just like overlooking the Rookery, and like we were almost kind of falling over the glass. Like, I thought I was going to die by falling off Vicarage Road, and what a way to go would have been. But I think that's the best limbs for me.
Yeah, it's definitely a good shout. Ricky's gone with Bayo against Norwich, same as you, Jack. Me, Jacob, and I can see Rio here and Dino here all agree. I think Bayo's goal against Middlesbrough was absolute carnage as well, which was a brilliant day on the whole, celebrating 100 years at the Vic. Our last couple of awards then. Start off with our young player of the season. I've personally gone with Ryan Andrews. Charlie?
I'd have gone Yasser Asprilla. He's still only 18. I think he's played 37 games for us this season. You see the potential there. I'm really excited. Like we've all said about, let's see if he can build up his physicality. I think he could be a special player. I'm definitely giving it to Yasser.
Jack?
Toby Adiemo'S, it's got to be, hasn't it? I mean, it's a shame that he didn't get included more, but happy to have seen him get a contract, and hopefully, he can kick on and we can get a good career there.
Yeah, definitely. Is he someone that you look to loan out next season, or do you want to see him involved?
Definitely. Look at like how Shaq Ford's gone at York. It looked like he had a great time out. Joe Hungbo, by the way, what a goal that was on yesterday. My lord.
I haven't seen it yet.
Cuts in on his left top bins. Really nice finish. Can we give it to Blake? I know he hasn't really played, but he's done well in the academy. It's got to be Adiemo'S.
Yeah, it looks like Blake's off as well, which is who can blame him really? To be fair. And lastly, player of the season, quite a straightforward one, I think, at least. I've gone with João Pedro. Jack.
It's Mario Gaspar. Nah, I'm messing. It has to be Pedro. Did you see it was nice of Watford to release like a goodbye video just before we came on, so I had to sort the tears out before we came on live. What a player, and I really, really hope that we're going to see him kick on and achieve great things, because albeit he wasn't here for long, the impact that he had on the fan base, on the club, we talk about, like, post Deeney, who's the kind of player that you're going to remember like for the rest of your life, and I know he definitely wasn't here for long enough, but I don't think I'll be quick to forget João.
Definitely. And Charlie, before coming on to yours, Laura's gone with João, obviously, but Megan Chandler too. I think Megan won player of the season for the women's team yesterday as well, so huge well done to her. Alfie's gone with Dan Backman, someone we spoke about earlier. Interesting choice, I think. Ken Sema for Ricky. Charlie, who have you gone with?
Yeah, it's got to be João Pedro. No one else. Different gravy. Can't wait to see what he does at Brighton. Just privileged to be able to watch him in some of his performances. So not a lot more to say.
Yeah, we did last week. We did a more formal farewell to João Pedro. So make sure to have a look at that video if you haven't already. Both of you. That's it for the awards. Before we just talk quickly about Valérien Ismaël, question here from Josh, who I can see is a Sunderland fan, and I think a lot of Watford fans will be getting behind you lot. Come on,
the Mackhams.
Who are we all backing in the playoffs then? Who do we think will win it?
For me personally, Sunderland are going to steamroll them lot. There's no question about that one. Looking forward to hopefully seeing a Borough-Sunderland final. I think that'd be massive. Wembley packed out. You got to go for Sunderland just because they're the underdogs. But I think Borough, with their quality, they probably deserve to go up the most. I love what Michael Carrick has done there. And I think, it'd be nice to have them back in the Prem.
I'm worried about Borough. I'm worried about Borough's form. They've just seemed to kind of slow down just because where they've kind of done so well. I'm just worried about their form. But Coventry aren't a bad side. Kumara'S can win a game by himself. Got a big Cov fan who's a mate of mine, so I'll be kind of cheering those on. But yeah, Sunderland, just do the job. Just do the job. 2 games, please.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm not going to give my answer who I think will win the playoffs because it hurts when I say it. But I just think they look like the strongest team, and they're the form team going into it as well. But I don't know. It pains me to say it, but obviously I'm begging to be proved wrong.
If that happens, what are we going to do on that day, or do we just
cry myself to sleep?
It's like the reverse of going to the pond. I don't know where that is. Somewhere in Watford.
In the comments, what's the reverse of going in the pond?
I think it's prism, to be honest with you. Not prism with the M at the end of club.
It's like jumping into an empty swimming pool. Those videos when people jump on like ice? That's what it's like.
Oh, God. And quickly as well, huge best of luck to Helen Ward as well in her retirement as well. She's got one more game, obviously, to play, as we spoke about earlier. But brilliant career and fair play to her for everything that she achieved. Rumours coming out today. Adam Leventhal said that Valérien Ismaël is Watford's #1 target to be manager. Talks have already happened. Charlie, what's your immediate reaction to that news?
Pretty mixed. We've seen kind of Adam Leventhal report it. Was it a week ago or something like that, or a few days ago? Adam's saying it's advanced. I don't. So I'm not. We'll have to see what happens in the next coming days if it is. Yeah, bit mixed. At Barnsley, he did an unbelievable job getting them from kind of relegation candidates into the playoffs. They played brilliant, kind of really direct football, quite similar to kind of Graham Taylor style football, high pressing, get it up, try and win it high up and keep it in their third. I think he plays free at the back with wing backs. Sounds familiar. But then you look at his job at West Brom, and if you speak to any West Brom fan, I'm sure they'll tell you that he was terrible. And then I looked at his Besiktas record today, and he only lost 3 games. He drew the other 8, and then he won the other 8. So I know his Besiktas maybe 3 games is enough, but when he first came in halfway through last season, he only lost 1 game and did really well for them. So I'm a bit surprised that he left, or something might have happened circumstantial. So a bit mixed. Like if you look at his career as well, he hasn't lasted anyone for a long time. I think we'd like to have the idea that whoever comes in, we're going to get a year from them, please. 6 months would be nice. So I'm a bit mixed. He probably wouldn't be my first choice, but he does play really good football. He does play exciting football. I think the one thing that I'm also worried about is where it hasn't worked out as Besiktas and West Brom is the ability where his team have been the better team, where they'll dominate more possession, the ability to break down a low block. Heard a few people say he's only got plan A. So yeah, I'm not too sure. He's got loads of links to kind of playing in Germany, managing youth teams in Germany, so you can see what Ben Manga will have that connection there. It'd be interesting to see what happens in the coming days. We want to do our manager's tier list video on Sunday, so can you just hold off if anything's going to happen? But and then we can go into more detail if it does happen. But bit mixed reaction. Jack, what are you thinking?
It screams same old. And I think the only thing that's different about it is the Ben Manga influence. And time will tell how much authority and control he does actually have. I know that we've heard a lot of words and we haven't actually seen any of it in practice yet. I think that, to be completely honest with you, I think actually quite a few Watford fans share this opinion. I'm beyond caring about head coaches. I think that they could bring in anyone and they'd probably do a pretty similar thing. I think that we need to reconsider the types of players that we're bringing in, thinking about how old they are, where they played before, what they can bring to the team. Obviously, it'd be ideal to have a manager come in, by Sunday, for example, and have a full pre-season and get to work with Manga on who they want to bring in. Are the Potts is going to do that? Probably not. Gino, if you're listening, please.
Wait until after the tier list on Sunday. Come on.
Let's hope we can do that video on Sunday. Before we go as well, Alfie goes Deeney as manager, and Geordie goes Deeney linked with Walsall. I actually saw something earlier today that Deeney is now one of the odds-on favourites to become the Walsall manager next season, which should be interesting if that ever happens. I don't think I'd take him back as Watford manager just yet until he's proven himself, but be interested to see how he gets on. Last question for both of you then. How would you rate Watford's season out of 10?
Is that a serious question?
I'll give it a 2. I'll give it a 2. Not those 2 points.
Yeah, I think 2 is probably fair. One's too harsh. One's just completely terrible. There were some nice things to take out of it, and look, the fact that you haven't given up with the show, Sam, says that there's obviously still a bit of hope, and the fact that you boys come on, week in, week out, and there are always positives. I don't think there's been a show yet where it's been all absolute misery, and that's the beauty of football. Unless you're a Scunthorpe fan, in which case it is pretty miserable. But yeah, I think there are definitely positives to take.
Charlie, out of 10.
Yeah, if I can be more positive and give it a 3, maybe perhaps, but 2 sounds quite good. We have spent an hour talking about quite a lot of good things, so it hasn't been completely bad. We've had some good memories. So So yeah, I think it's just our expectations when we came in, and maybe the communications from the hierarchy haven't helped that about thinking we're going to go up as champions. I think that's one thing that we maybe need to reconsider as Watford fans, lower those expectations. Because if we were a Coventry fan or I don't know, a Sunderland channel, and we had the season that Watford have had, you'd probably give it a 5 or a 6. So yeah, same as you guys really too, but surely it can only get better.
Well,
do you know what? We're going into next season as a championship club that aren't gonna have the parachute payments, and I mean Sam and both of you actually, when you get brought up on championship football, you fall in love with it, right? Danny Graham, Marvin Sordell, Lloydinho, and I'm hoping that actually, to be honest, staying in the championship for a few years wouldn't be the end of the world if we can get things sorted. But it is the best league in the world. And obviously things haven't gone our way this season. But if you look at a Coventry, you look at a Sunderland, I mean, that Millwall capitulation alone was enough to kind of say, oh, this league is quality. So I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to going to Plymouth and Ipswich next year with you, Sam. It's going to be good fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. And on that note, that's a wrap for our 2022-2023 season. We'll be back later in the week for a very special video that we've got to celebrate 10 years since that Troy Deeney goal before we start all over again, hopefully with the manager tier list, if not with the official confirmation and reaction to the news about Valérien Ismaël, before we have the likes of keep or sell, our predictions for next season. As Alfie has asked for over here, we'll have a call in. And let's hope we'll be a Premier League club come this time next year. Jack, Jack, thank you so much for coming on today.
No worries, lad. Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you as per Charlie. And thank you everyone for your support this season. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and tell your Watford mates about us. And we'll see you all soon. Up the Hornets.
Told you, Hornets.
Good job, Sam.